Today we're talking about how to start an LLC in Georgia, and what we have back here is a document that has a bunch of checklists for you so that you can get your LLC set up correctly, but then also so that you know how to maintain that LLC in the future. And really the purpose of this video series is how to avoid the LLC dumpster fire. Because what you see here is a lot of times new LLC owners, they don't understand terms such as piercing the corporate veil, registered agents, commingling funds, pass-through taxation, or even how the LLC renewal process works. And a lot of times to understand all this information, you need to truly understand what an LLC actually does for your business. And this is a video series because I want to be very thorough, because I want to get you thinking about things in the future, not only about like protecting your business, but also ways that you can grow your business and earn more income by saving on taxes. And we're going to be getting into all that throughout this video series. So video one right here, why don't we start with understanding exactly what an LLC does for you. It is a limited liability company, so it offers limited liability protection, and it also offers pass-through taxation. Now, why don't we use the example of owning a coffee shop without an LLC? What that looks like is you have this business owner here in the center, and on the left-hand side, you have their personal home, personal car, personal bank account are all directly connected to them. But on the right-hand side, they have the coffee shop, their point of sale, their business bank account, their espresso machine, the lights. All this is directly connected to the business owner, and this is dangerous because if they're sued, the person suing them can come after all of these assets. But if they own an LLC that owns the coffee shop, it looks very different. Now you can see that their personal assets on the left-hand side are there, but on the right-hand side is the Acme Coffee LLC, we're calling it, and all those assets are attached to that LLC. This red line in the middle, that division is called the corporate veil. And we talked about that at the beginning of this video, and we said we're going to talk about piercing the corporate veil. Now what this means is, let's say that somebody was hurt at the coffee shop and they hire an attorney to sue you. What that attorney is going to try to do is they're first going to see if you have an LLC set up, and then when they see that, they're going to try to pierce the corporate veil. They're basically trying to find cracks in your LLC so that they can erase this division between your personal and business assets. Things that can happen there are things such as like commingling funds, or maybe an improper registered agent, or you didn't renew your LLC. So when that happens, if they're able to pierce the corporate veil, they're able to sue you for your business assets, but also your personal assets as well. So that's why setting up your LLC correctly and then making sure you're maintaining it correctly is so important. Next, let's talk about an explanation of pass-through taxation. This would be a really simple one, but let's say you get this business set up and in year one, you grossed $140,000, you had expenses of $90,000, and a net income of $50,000. What happens to that $50,000 is it flows through or passes through to your personal tax return. So when the IRS is taxing you, they're taxing you on your personal tax return. That's where that $50,000 is going to show up. So I just wanted you to understand exactly what pass-through taxation is, because a lot of times people are unfamiliar with that when they're setting up an LLC. Now, you don't necessarily set up an LLC to save on taxes because you could have a sole proprietorship and still have those business expenses. But the cool thing about the LLC is it's very flexible. In the future, you can decide to have an LLC with an S-Corp designation, and that can help you save on taxes. And we're going to be getting into that later in this video series. I keep mentioning that this is a video series because, again, I want you to understand these things that go beyond just setting up your LLC. I want you to save on taxes 2 years out of owning your LLC, or I want you to be aware of those pitfalls that people run into. Next here, I want to talk about a checklist to start your LLC. Well, number one is get this checklist for yourself and also explore the bonus and glossary. This is a Notion doc. It is a living, breathing document that's only going to improve with time. But what you can see right here is underneath the bonuses, I can open up this AI chatbot here, and then I can do questions such as like how to start an LLC in Georgia. And this chatbot is going to give you a detailed list of how you'd go about doing this. You can also do things such as, how do I register an EIN? You can see you have a quick button here for it. And we're going to be talking about in this video what an EIN is, but I just wanted to make you aware of this cool feature right here that lives inside of this tool. Other things, there's a free charity opportunity here, which we'll get to in the next video. There's a yearly accounting calendar, which is really helpful for just knowing your dates that are important when you have an LLC. This is a image here that you can save to your phone even. Free CPA advice, and then future tax savings. The glossary of terms here is really helpful because there may be things that I mentioned in this video and you're like, I need to know a little bit more about that. What do they mean by that? There's going to be this glossary of terms that only gets filled out more with time as well. Next, what you need to do is decide which route you're going to go: state site, LLC Services, or attorney. We have an entire video next in the series dedicated to that, but just giving you the 30,000 foot view here. Basically, the state site is helpful in terms of like, there's not a lot of upsells. You can do an expedited processing fee, but that's about it. But at the same time, there's not a lot of additional services that they offer you as well. They're not going to help you with business banking or your EIN, because the EIN happens on the federal level. They just don't help you with all these other things. Online LLC services, legal tools, really great for those extra features, but there may be times where you're getting upsold into something that's going to cost you more money. So you have to decide, like, is it worth the extra cost? And then the business attorney, there's certain times where, like, let's say you have employees in and out of state, you have a business partner and you want to get a rock solid operating agreement. Those types of things, you may want to consider a business attorney, but again, we'll deep dive into that in the next video. What you need to do is decide on a business name for your LLC. My first piece of advice here is don't get super stressed out about this, because you can just make it like your name, LLC. The reason I say that is you could have a brand name that exists underneath your LLC within it, right? So this could be a fictitious name, it may be called, or a DBA, doing business as. So you may just have like LLC as your name, but then what you could have is a brand name that exists underneath it. That brand name is going to be much more important because that's what the public is going to see. But what you want to do is you want to search availability of your business name. Now there's a state directory link here, and when you click on that, what you're going to need to do is find the state of Georgia, and you'll click here, and then this takes you to a business name search. Now, let's say I did Georgia Bulldogs. And of course, when we search this, what we're going to see here is we're going to have a list of different names that are already taken. So that's bad. Like, this is a name that's already taken. But let's say I just hammer the keyboard here and say search. What you're going to see now is that there are no data found. Now, even though this looks like an alert, this is a good thing. This is what we want. We want an LLC name that is not taken within the state of Georgia. So once you have that, we'll click here, and then we're ready to form your LLC. First thing you can do here is you can register your LLC name. Now, what that means exactly is the best example I can give you is, like, let's say you want to start a website, but you're not ready to actually build the website yet, but you're like, I want that domain. You go and you purchase that domain. Well, when you register your LLC name, you're just making sure that you own that mark, that registered LLC name. And then later, what we're going to do is file the articles of organization. Now, to do that, you need to write your articles of organization and file it with the state. So once again, we have a state directory link here. When we click on that, it has the bullet points of what goes into your articles of organization. Again, this is the official document that you fill out and give it to the state that helps you form your LLC. You're going to let the state know your company name, primary business address, registered agent, which we'll get to in a minute here, duration, purpose, management, tax treatment, and authorized signature. Now, why don't we go down again to Georgia? So we go to business forms and then articles. What we have here is filing template, article of dissolution. And then here's where you can find this download PDF here. So why don't we take a look at this? This is instructions for completing your form and then how you actually go about doing this. So here is the information that is required here. It's pretty simple. It's just the name of the limited liability company. And it says the articles of organization shall be effective upon filing with the Secretary of State, and they'll be effective on this date. You can make this a date as into the future. And witness whereof, signature, print name, and then capacity choose one. So this is one of the simplest state articles of organization. It just says here, Article 1 is enter proposed name. Article 2 is check the appropriate statement regarding the effective date and time of the document. If the document is to be effective on the date of filing, check the first statement. If the document is to become effective later, then the date of filing, check the second. And we're going to look at this in a minute. Signature, the articles of organization must be signed by an organizer, member, manager, and attorney. In fact, the signer must state the capacity in which he or she is signing. And there's a fee of $100. Now, this is really important. There is no way around this fee. You're going to pay the state of Georgia, the secretary, $100 for filing your LLC. Now, if you go through an online legal tool, you're going to pay that. If you go through an attorney, you are going to pay that $100. Now, that fee may go up in time, but what we have is a pretty cool LLC cost calculator that gives you your specific state. So now let's say you go to Georgia on here. What you'll see is you can see the $100 state filing fee, but then there's an annual fee of $50. That is to renew your LLC. This calculator is really cool because it lets you know about all the different fees associated with setting up your LLC with some of the top LLC services out there. So what most people are going to do here is enter their LLC name, and then if you want it to be filed on the effective date, you click this. If you're not looking to do it into the future, You can put the date, signature, and print name. Now, if you're the one filing this LLC, you would just click the organizer button here. Now, you could mail that off to your state with a $100 check. Most people would just create a login with the Georgia State website and then be able to file their articles of organization that way. But the important thing too is you're going to have to assign a registered agent. Now, this is really important. What a registered agent is a third party that handles important documentation and communication for your business. Now, let's go back to that example of being sued with the coffee shop. The attorney suing you is going to give you a service of process notice. So basically you have to show up to court. Well, your registered agent is going to make sure that you get that information, that you're showing up to court with the proper documentation that you need. Now, the other nice thing about this registered agent is they create a little bit of distance for your business. If you're setting up a new business where you work from home, the registered agent, that information goes in the state database. That'll be their address. Now, the requirements for the registered agent is that they have to have a physical address in the state of Georgia, and it can't be a P.O. box, and it is required that you have this registered agent. And in the next video in the series, we'll talk about ways that you can get a free registered agent for the first year in business. Now, next, you want to consider creating and signing an LLC operating agreement. This isn't actually required in the state of Georgia. It's only required in 5 states to have an operating agreement in place when you set up your LLC. What I'd recommend though is it's always a good idea. Basically what it is that situation of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Let's say that you started that coffee shop, but you had a partner that you started it with. So you had 2 members within the LLC, a multi-member LLC. Now, let's say that the business, you franchise it out, you have like 9 different locations, and then your partner decides that they want out of the business. Well, how do you handle that? Well, without an operating agreement that spells these things out in advance, you have a lot of litigation that's going to happen to figure out what percentage that they get. So this may be tens of thousands of dollars where you could have just spent a little bit of time and energy and potentially money if you pull in a business attorney to get a rock solid operating agreement that spells all this out for you from day one. Good idea to get that set up. And we'll talk more about that in future videos as well on ways that you can do that for yourself. Now, set up an EIN. There's an IRS link here. And I also mentioned that LLC Services, the online ones, will do this for you as well. But what an EIN is this is an employer identification number. It's basically a social security number for your business so that the IRS can identify your business. And it's not necessarily required right away, but I would suggest just doing it because it doesn't take a lot of time. And what it does is it legitimizes your business. And then when you start hiring employees and putting them on payroll, well, you're going to need an EIN. When you apply for a business bank account, it's going to look good that you can just put your EIN number on there. If you're trying to get a loan, business insurances, all these things, super helpful to just have that EIN in place. And you can certainly do it through this link here that we provided in the Notion document. But you can also, like I mentioned, have LLC Services handle this for you. Now, again, that's like kind of a differentiator. Like the state website is not going to help you with that because that's a federal thing. So that's where the state websites become limited, is they only help you on these state specific elements and not all these other additional features and services that you may need. Now, after LLC formation, we talked about setting up the EIN, but obtaining business licenses and permits for your state. There's a helpful SBA resource, if you're not familiar, that's the Small Business Administration, that walks you through things you need to know with this. But I'm going to break this down for you right now. These are things that you may need on the federal level, state level, and local government level. A great example of this is, let's say that you were to start a brewery. When you own a brewery and you're going to be serving alcohol, these are going to require licenses and permits. But those may be required on the town level or the city level. They may be required on the state level. And in some instances, sometimes businesses require federal licenses and permits. Maybe you're starting a big construction company and you're working in other states or things of that nature. Another example is like, let's say you're starting a construction company. You're going to need licenses and permits, and you may need them on different levels. Again, the state website is not going to help you with this, but online legal tools, they will, for an additional fee, help you research these things and set this up for you. But just be aware that you're not necessarily done after you set up your LLC. Plenty of businesses won't require these, but if you're setting up like a dental office or things that typically need licenses and permits, you may have to take those additional steps. In the next video in our series here, we're going to talk about the fees associated with setting up your LLC. We're going to be getting more into this cost calculator and breaking everything down in here. Next, we're going to be talking about star ratings for the state website, online LLC services, and business attorney, and then when it makes sense to use one or the other. And that basically comes down to questions worth asking. And this is really going to help you determine, like, should you consider talking to a business attorney, spending the extra money, or does it make sense to just use the other 2 services? Another thing we're going to get into is why state websites become a pain, and that can come down to domestic LLCs versus foreign LLCs. And again, we're going to explain that in the next video. But I highly recommend you get this checklist for yourself. There will be a link in the description below, and I'll catch you in this next video where we can deep dive further getting your LLC set up.